everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and I've got two special guests to the channel, and we are going to talk about Motorhead, Reed Little from the Contrarians, and the Parish of Rock from many YouTube channels and the Contrarians. How are you?
Doing great, Peter. Thank you for the invite, as always.
Fantastic. We're going to do an album battle, and it's going to be Ace of Spades versus Another Perfect Day. Two different lineups. One came out in 1980 and one came out in 1983. What we're going to do is we'll go around the grounds. We'll talk about 3 or 4 songs per album each, get good coverage of the albums, and at the end of the show, we'll give you our analysis of what we think is the better album. So I might start off with you, Reed. Let's talk about Ace of Spades, a little bit of admin. This hit the UK top 10, number 4, was released on the 1st of November 1980. It's the classic lineup of Lemmy, Fast Eddie Clarke on guitar, Filthy Animal Taylor on drums, and it was produced by Vic Mail, who's known for the Animals, Fleetwood Mac, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, a few gold caliber acts indeed. So over to you. Why don't you talk about Ace of Spades and maybe let's pick a song.
All right. So Ace of Spades is undoubtedly the prototypical Motorhead album. If people are not like deep Motorhead fans and they know one album, this is the album that they know. Kind of like, there are millions of people that have AC/DC's Back in Black and no other AC/DC albums. Although this Ace of Spades did not sell millions of copies to this point. It's not a super commercially successful album. I love the album. I don't own a physical copy of it, so I can't hold up the album cover, but I love the album cover. I think they only did 2 album covers that have band photos, and this faux Western image, which is apparently shot in a quarry someplace. So they're actually just at a rock quarry in England, but you kind of feel like they're shooting a spaghetti Western. So I thought that was pretty cool. And if you listen to this album, you really get the stereotypical, prototypical Motorhead sound. And I'm going to skip over the title track. Ace of Spades is just, again, if you only know one Motorhead song, that's the song. So I'm going to leave it as too common and move on to the next of my favorite tracks, which is We Are the Road Crew. So Lemmy famously worked, at least for a little while, as a roadie for Jimi Hendrix. Motorhead were a constant road warrior band. They were always touring. Their road crew was famously loyal and got into a lot of trouble with the band in a lot of different countries. And they made this ode to the road crew, and it's a great song. And I get the impression from the lyrics that some of it is from, Lemmy's personal experience. Some of it is just from seeing the road crew in action. You talk about going through the borders and not being able to find the hotel rooms and handing out backstage passes and all of that other fun kind of stuff. It's a great song. It's very upbeat. It is about an underserved part of the music industry. Without road crews, no touring act would be able to make it. And it's a killer tune on top of that. So one of my favorites, We Are the Road Crew.
What a cracking start. Thank you very much, Reed. Parish, what's the first song you're going to spotlight off this album?
Well, before I talk about the first song, I want to talk a little bit about the background to the album. This album was recorded at Jackson's studios in Rickmansworth, Maple Cross in Rickmansworth, which was 20 minutes from my school. So when they recorded there quite a bit, so did Girls' School, and we would go up there regularly to try to meet the band. Never met them. I think they must have seen us coming and run off. We met Girls' School, and they were great. They hung out with us down the pub on one occasion, but never met Motorhead. And the quarry that you're talking about is a stone quarry that is in, I think what's the name of the place? Anyway, just outside Maple Cross. And from the school, we could look up and we could see the quarry. And this probably won't mean anything to either of you guys, but there's a science fiction program over here called Doctor Who. And in the 70s, Doctor Who filmed a lot of their planet scenes. When they were looking for an alien planet, they would film it in the same quarry. So it was quite a famous quarry for all sorts of reasons. But it does look like they're in the desert somewhere in the Midwest, I think, or maybe New Mexico. So there's a bit of background to the, my sort of connection to the album, if you like. I saw them twice on the tour. I saw them at the start of the tour at Aylesbury Friars. That is a relatively small club, probably held, if it held 1,000 people, I'd be surprised. We were down the front on the left-hand side, and it was the loudest concert I ever went to. We were right up to the speakers. And they had the stacks that were suitable for much bigger venues, but they didn't turn it down because of that. So it was on full blast in a small venue. And then we saw them at the end of the tour at Hammersmith Odeon, where they concluded the tour. And I saw them there as well. So, and on that tour, they had Girls' School supporting, and they also had a band called Vardis, which I've spoken on the Contrarians a couple of times about, new wave of British heavy metal, which is basically status quo. Albums played at 78 rather than, 45 or 38 RPM instead of, so it's a speeded up kind of Motorhead meets Status Quo with Vardis. Very good band. So that's kind of my connection to the album. I remember getting it the week of its release, not necessarily the day of its release, but certainly the week of the release. I love the album, and I am not going to skip over the title track because Motorhead are legends in the UK. I mean, their T-shirts, a bit like the Ramones, everybody's got a Motorhead T-shirt, apart from me, because I couldn't find mine. You can buy the T-shirts in the supermarket, still buy them in the supermarket, whether it's the sort of the logo, whether it's the snaggletooth, sort of emblem. One that's quite common as a T-shirt is that one, quite often. And they are a household name, and it's all because of Ace of Spades, the song, not even the album, but the song. And it was everywhere at the time. It was in every single program. I mean, it was obviously on programs like Top of the Pops, but if you had any sort of light entertainment program that might be aimed at parents and grandparents, and then alongside, I don't know, somebody like a Val Doonigan or somebody like that, sort of very middle of the road, all of a sudden Motorhead would be on there doing Ace of Spades. So they're just known everywhere. So that song, if you go to any wedding in the UK, any disco, any party, that is likely to be put on, and you will see all sorts of people you would not expect to see dancing to Motorhead Ace of Spades. So it's a legendary song. It also happens to be my wife's song as well. And there's a bit of a story to that, but I'm going to save that for maybe another day. So it means a lot to me, and it is just such a brilliant song. The lyrics are fantastic, the imagery that it portrays, and it not only, in my view, sums up Motorhead in one song. I would say it sums up British heavy metal in the early 80s in one song. So yeah, absolute classic. So I get the point that probably everybody knows it anyway, so I'm not actually going to talk about the song per se or what it sounds like. But I think, and you know how some songs you hear it all the time and you think, I don't want to hear that again. Every time I hear Ace of Spades, for the reasons I've just said, it just brings a smile to my face. Think it's an excellent song. So that's my first one, is Ace of Spades.
Fantastic. And look, that is the signature song for Motorhead, Ace of Spades, definitely. The song I'm going to talk about is We Are the Road Crew. So I'm just going to come in after Reed. Apparently, Lemmy only took 10 minutes to write this song. It's observations of life on the road for the road crew that helped put the shows together. I think it's just pure street poetry. Lemmy's a very street poet type of writer. Musically, it has a groove to it. Fast, steady, playing behind the beat. Basically, you've got this typical gruff Lemmy delivery. the lyrics, you know, another town, another place, another girl, another face, another truck, another race. The word another, it's repeated all the way through the song, but it really is effective because it emphasizes kind of the work ethic of the crew, like in a laundry list. But at the end of the song, you also get the fatigue element of the crew because they're doing so much, another this, another that. And by the end of the song, you feel like these guys are like the most valuable part of the Motorhead machine. It's such an effective song. I love it. We Are the Road Crew, and I think it's top 3 songs on the album for me. Love it. Reed, what's your next song that you'd like to showcase?
Well, as problematic as it is, I've got to talk about Jailbait. Oh boy, this is a this is quite the track. Now, I don't want to end up on a watch list here, so it's like, if you've listened to this song, you know why it makes me uncomfortable. And probably just like We Are the Road Crew, it's written from Lemmy's authentic experiences. You know, teen baby, you're a sweet young thing, still tied to mama's apron string. I don't even dare to ask your age. It's enough to know you're here backstage. And it's a really catchy song. And now I kind of hate the fact that, you know, it's such an enjoyable song that, you know, maybe I didn't have as much of a social consciousness when I was a kid and didn't pay as much attention to the lyrics. But now I'm an old man. I listen to it and go, oh, man, that's problematic. But it's such a cracking track. Yeah. I just, you know what? I'm going to leave it at that. It's a great song. It's a really problematic song. Lemmy should have been ashamed of himself.
Well, you know, it's really interesting. In the day, and Parish, you'll probably concur, that Motorhead were one of the few bands that got reviewed favorably in those posh musical press magazines like NME. And they used to interpret Lemmy's lyrics as being tongue-in-cheek. And, you know, a lot of it, you know, at face value seems like it's very sexist and, you know, etc. But I think Lemmy's tongue is so fully in his cheek. It's kind of pushing it to the limit. You know what I mean?
On this track? No, I don't buy that for a second.
It was clearly a spoof. He was taking the piss out of songs like All Night Long by Rainbow, which is very similar, or Foreigner with Hot Blooded. I don't believe Lemmy meant a word of it. I do actually. I do really. I'm trying to defend the indefensible.
but do you remember that a lot of
the Lemmy seemed to get a free pass for all sorts of things, and you're right.
Yeah.
A lot of heavy rock was viewed to be, and quite rightly so, viewed to be very sexist.
Oafish.
And yet Lemmy. And it's odd because when you if you read Sounds and Kerrang and the articles when they went on the road with them, I mean, it's full of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There's no hiding any of it. They lived every moment of it, and yet for some reason they got a free pass on it to an extent that other bands didn't. So maybe it's just
why did they get a free pass like from the posh mags like NME? I think even Smash Hits used to write favorably about them, you know, where they sort of like, we hate heavy metal, but we don't mind Motorhead.
I think it's just, he was a charmer, wasn't he, Lemmy? I think he, I honestly, I don't know, but I mean, he was, you know, punk was all about being anti that kind of establishment and anti that kind of lyrics, and yet the punk fans loved Motorhead, so they kind of got away with it. And maybe for the same reason that AC/DC seemed to get away with it a bit with Bon Scott. And I think Bon Scott got away with it because he had that cheeky grin and glint in his eye, and people just thought he was like a rogue, and he had the charisma. But I think he got away with it a little bit more than Brian, because a lot of his lyrics were just like flat. The delivery was like a... You know, exactly. So that's why Bon got away with it, and I think maybe Lemmy, maybe in a similar way, that they're almost like cartoon characters, aren't they? And because they were so cartoon character-like, it did come across like they were sending it up. But in both cases, Lemmy and Bon Scott, they were living that life. They weren't sending it up at all. So,
yeah. All right. Well, I think this is an interesting topic. I'm sure we'll talk about it during the course of the show. Parish of Rock, what's the next song that you want to highlight?
well, it kind of ties in with that, I suppose, to some extent. So I'm actually going to go with track 2, Love Me Like a Reptile, which I think it's got a great riff to it. It slows the pace down a bit from the opening track. If anybody wants to say to you, Motorhead songs all sound the same, play Ace of Spades and then Love Me Like a Reptile. And they are different. There's different pacing, different sort of groove to them, different riffs, etc. I don't think Motorhead wrote a single love song. They didn't write love songs. They wrote lust songs. And this is definitely a lust song. The other thing I think, not just about that track, but also the album, it is a bit of a concept album, isn't it? I mean, those 3 rows on the front cover, looking like cowboys. You've got Ace of Spades, fits that. Love Me Like a Reptile is kind of talking about a relationship like a snake. You can kind of rattle snakes. You then got shoot you in the back, live to win, fire. There is a bit of a cowboy thing going on, I think, through the album. Whether that was intentional or whether it's just the way it fell, I don't know. But it's maybe Motorhead's first concept album. But anyway, the second track is Love Me Like a Reptile, which I think's got a good, great sort of chorus, good riff, and pretty catchy.
Nice, thanks, Parish. One thing that was hitting me when I was listening to this album, and it sort of struck me that a lot of the musicology, a lot of the riffs on this album sound like ZZ Top sped up.
Sorry, I was going to make a ZZ Top comment later. I have that exact note.
There you go. No, seriously, a lot of it, you can imagine the guitar lines and the guitar licks. If it was slowed down, you could imagine Billy Gibbons playing it, and the shuffly drum beats of Frank Beard. The song that I want to focus is Fast and Loose.
So just before you do that, just there's 2 connections there, isn't there? So, I mean, Motorhead did cover ZZ Top's Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers.
Yes.
So there was obviously, it's not coincidence if there's a link there. And of course, both Lemmy and Billy Gibbons have a Jimi Hendrix connection as well. So,
well, yeah, it all links together, but it's amazing. It's taken me like 58 years, and it just dawned upon me. It was like this light came down and said,
"Yeah, no, you're right."
Motorhead's like sped up ZZ Top.
Maybe that's who they were trying to. Maybe that's who they were trying to look like when they dressed like that. Maybe there was a
and punk. You can't deny that there is the punk influence there. Like Lemmy was always a big fan of the early Damned, the Pistols, that sort of stuff. So I think it's all in a melting pot. But Fast and Loose, you got some real bluesy guitar work with Eddie, nice shuffle drumming from Filthy Animal Taylor, and you've got funny tongue-in-cheek lyrics. Like, I've been around for quite a while and I've learned how to make you smile. You just can't take it seriously. It's got so much humor. And there's something about British heavy metal and hard rock that even goes to bands like The Darkness, this humor that a lot of overseas markets may not quite understand. It's very British humor, isn't it, Parish?
It certainly is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, this is one of the deeper tracks, but I love it. Fast and Loose, and it's like sped up the ZZ Top. Reed.
So for my third track, I chose what to me is the other masterpiece on this album, which is The Chase is Better Than the Catch. And I literally have the note, this is a ZZ Top song. And honestly, it's not even a slowed down or a sped up ZZ Top. ZZ Top had a lot of fast numbers. So you don't even have to change the tempos. It's really more in the drumming than anything else. When Phil Taylor goes into that slower groove, it is so that 4 on the floor thing that Frank Beard does, and then you have that driving riff over the top of it. It is very ZZ Top. And I love Parish, the one thing you were saying earlier, the sonic profile on this song. If you listen to Bite the Bullet, the song which is just ahead of it on the track listing, it's a very dark song. It's a very murky song. And then you go to The Chase is Better Than the Catch. The EQ profile is completely different. It's much brighter. The vocals sit much higher in the mix. And it does have that groove to it and just that driving rhythm. Dun, 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 dun. And sometimes simplicity produces the most memorable music. Those are the songs that really get the hooks in you, other than, well, it may come up when we talk about the next album, which gets into a lot more complex song structures. But yeah, The Chase is Better Than the Catch. Plus, it's got that lyric, the chase is better than the catch. And like you're saying, yeah, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I also think that's probably exactly how Lemmy felt in life. But it's a great, great song. I would have loved to have heard ZZ Top cover it.
Well, I'm seeing them next week. I might shout it out. You never know. Yeah. Parish, what's your next showcase pick?
It's just dawned on to me. It was appropriate for you to have 3 of us on this, wasn't it? So being a power trio, you've got a power trio, and I was just reflecting as you were talking which one is whom. So I'm assuming you're the leaders, Peter. So you must be Lemmy. I think Reed, you're Fast Eddie. So that I guess makes me filthy Phil.
Well, you are an ex-drummer.
And I'm an ex-drummer, yeah. So yes, there you go. So we're the Motorhead of YouTube. I've just decided. So there you go. Right. So the song I'm going to pick, you two have already said it. We are the Road Crew. We are, being in brackets, I'm not quite sure why, but anyway, we are the Road Crew. Although I have to say, I do actually prefer the version on the live album.
Oh, doesn't that kick ass? Yeah, absolutely. I think it just takes, so it's a great song, but the definitive version for me is the version on No Sleep Till Hammersmith. And the introduction cracks me up every time when he goes,
yeah, exactly. Exactly right. So I think you've said it all really, other than I just think it's such a catchy song as well. The chorus, you can't, well, I can't anyway. I can't help but sing along to it when he gets to the chorus. So, yeah, so it's a bit of a sing-along, catchy song. It is a classic. And again, just shows that there is a bit of variety in Motorhead. They don't all sound the same, because if you're saying the 2 songs from this album that maybe most people would know as Ace of Spades or We Are the Road Crew, they are quite different songs. So it does show that there is a bit of variety in the Motorhead
100%.
Sound.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the song I'm going to pick is the one that I think has got a lot of it, the most attack in the playing, and that's the hammer, which on the UK version is the finale. Lemmy's voice is so gnarly and leathery, and that's saying something about a vocalist who's quite gnarly and leathery. It's to the power of 10. This has a lot of speed metal and punk attitude to the riff. They're really tearing into it. And you can see those punk bands like GBH got their DNA from songs like this. So this is the song where a lot of punk bands took Motorhead to their hearts and went in that direction with the crossover. It's a ball-tearing finale to the album. Again, it's got a bit of a repeat riff. I like how Fast Eddie uses a bit of wah-wah, and you've got this cyclonic guitar chords. It's a really interesting song. And again, it goes to what the Parish is saying. It doesn't sound like the rest of the album. It's something completely different. It's a fine finale.
And the drumming, sorry, I was just going to say, the drumming and the bass playing on that song is fantastic. It just kind of just drives it along. I mean, I guess that's why it's called a hammer, because that's the driving it along bit with the bass and the drums.
Absolutely. Reed, have you got another quick one that you want to wedge in for this album?
No, not really. I mean, I'll have a lot more to say on the next album. I think I'm gonna leave it at those songs.
Abstain. What about you, Parish? You got another
Well, I've got
song
one
you would
more
just want to...
because as we all know, Motorhead aren't a heavy rock band at all, are they? They're just a rock and roll band. Because Lemmy kept telling us they're just a rock and roll band. And if you want evidence of that on this album, then it's Dance. I mean, Dance is a classic rock and roll song. If it had a more traditional singer on it, you could imagine even a band like Mud potentially playing it, or sort of a 50s rock and roller as well. So if you want to hear again a different side to them, and you want to hear a bit of rock and roll just to see if Lemmy's telling the truth, then Dance is I think a little bit different on the album. The lyrics are a bit different as well. It's not really the typical Motorhead lyrics. It's more of just a good time, have a party, which they don't do a lot of those sort of songs. We know there's a lot of bands that do, but Motorhead's not one of them. So yeah, I think it's a good track. I suppose it's a bit of a throwaway song, but I've always enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to have a quick chat about this as well. This is an example where Motorhead has a lot of groove. You've got a very basic hooky guitar riff, but the driving bass and the drums appear to have like a tambourine or a shaker attached to it. And maybe it just gives the illusion that there's more groove than there actually is. But boy, again, in the verse, there's kind of a bar blues type of melody line, and it gives me a ZZ Top vibe. I don't know what happened. I've been listening to Motorhead for 30 years, and it's only in the last week it was like, something came down and I go, this is like sped up ZZ Top or slowed down ZZ Top, depending, but it's a ZZ Top. Anyway, love this song. All right, gentlemen, we will go to 1983, Another Perfect Day. So this album didn't do as well in the UK charts, went to number 20, started to chart in America, albeit 153 in the Billboard Top 200. Bit of a longer album. This is 44 minutes. Ace of Spades was about 38. The producer this time is the esteemed Tony Platt, AC/DC, Cheap Trick, Foreigner, anybody? Now, the major chain was Fast Eddie, Gone, and Brian Robbo Robertson, ex of Thin Lizzy, is in. So, Reed, over to you. Tell us about your first impression of the album and spotlight a song, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so do you want me to hold general comments, or should I throw out my general comments now?
Maybe just go to a song and then we'll wrap it up with some general comments.
Okay, well, first I want to say this is, by a really wide margin, my all-time favorite Motorhead cover. I love the chaos of it. I love the color of it. And even once you spot the genitals, it doesn't stop being my favorite album cover.
Tongue in cheek.
I mean, I don't know how I had missed them for a while, but one day you look at it and go, oh my, okay.
So
well, once you see it, you can't
that was Reed's Jesus moment.
Yeah. And then there are actually Wangs on several Motorhead album covers. I can't remember what the artist's name is, but I read a whole interview with him where he was talking about that.
Look,
quite the interesting
you keep
character.
This up, this clip might get banned. All right, come on.
So I absolutely love this album. So I have some general comments, but I'm going to go straight to one of the songs. I'm actually going to start. Let's go to an interior track. I love the song One Track Mind. I love the way it opens with the guitar. I love the way the lyric is kind of more sparse. And this is, people tend to compartmentalize Another Perfect Day and say, oh, it's so different from the albums with Fast Eddie, and oh, it's so different from the albums that they would make with Wurzel and Phil Campbell. But I think One Track Mind sounds just exactly like the type of song that they do on Orgasmatron, which is the next album. So it's not quite a drone, but it has more of a droning rhythm to it. And then Lemmy has this very sparse vocal. And Brian doesn't, I was going to say overplay, but there's so much guitar on this album. We'll talk about that, I guess, in the general comments. But there's a little less guitar on this song than some of the others. But I think that by way of contrast, that actually makes it a more impactful song.
Thank you, Reed. Parish.
Okay, well, before I get into the album, my first song, I remember reading in Sound that Fast Eddie had gone, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, those three just seemed such a perfect band, like a band of brothers. It just seemed unthinkable that one of the three had gone. And then a week or two later, Robbo is in there, and I was so excited because I was a big fan from Thin Lizzy. From Thin Lizzy. I liked, but been slightly disappointed with Wild Horses, and I thought, yeah, this could be really good. So very excited, which I think was unusual because I think a lot of people at the time were not excited. They thought it was going to be a clash of two different styles that just, oil and water, and it just wouldn't work. But I was very excited, and the reason I say that is because I came to the album kind of hoping for Motor Lizzy. That's kind of what I wanted. I wanted a combination. And then, so I'm going to go with the first track on the album, Back at the Funny Farm, because I think this is a really, really clever opening song. And the reason I think it's really clever is it starts exactly like you'd expect Motorhead to sound. It's so familiar with Lemmy's bass and Phil Taylor's drumming. There's nothing in it until the guitar starts that would make you think this wasn't just a continuation of Motorhead. So it kind of fools you into thinking, oh, okay, nothing's changed, got a different guitarist. They're going to be like a lot of other bands that have revolving guitarists, nothing different. I'm in safe hands. And even when the guitar does kick in, even though it sounds a bit different, it doesn't sound hugely different. And I think that was very clever, putting that song on first so that people, because I think there's a couple of other songs if they'd started the album with, it would have frightened everybody off. But I think this sort of lulled everybody into a full sense of security and sort of invited you in on the journey. And it's also a very good song as well, I might add. So very classic Motorhead sound. Back at the Funny Farm, opening track is my first choice.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do the same song. It does really put you in a full sense of security that this is on familiar terrain. It even so much that you starts off with some Lemmy stage patter, and then you go to that motif bass line, and then you hear Robbo's guitar chimes in, sounding very Lizzy-like, and you go, what the hell's this? This is new, and it's kind of wonderful. It gives you a different texture. It's a different textured Motorhead. I love this song. It's got a lot of push and pull. You've got the driving bass. There's a lot of stop-start Robbo guitar stabs, punctuated riffs, and a really whacked-out guitar solo. And I love Lemmy's vocals on this album, and this song in particular. It sounds as gnarly as the album cover. Extremely gnarly. I think it's a really outstanding song. Fantastic. Reed, what's your next pick?
Okay, my next pick, I'm going to go to the track number 2, Shine. I love the opening tracks on this album, and I can't really talk about it without making a few more general comments. So I want to start off by saying Robbo's tone is very different than Fast Eddie's. It's very different. And the reason it's different is because Lemmy, his bass is very different on this album. So for years and years, my memory of this album was that Robbo was less riff-oriented than Fast Eddie Clarke. But now that when you sit down to really analyze something and listen to it, track by track, and I'm going back and forth, and I realize that's completely incorrect. What's different about this album is that they've moved Lemmy's bass way down in the soundscape, and Robbo is way up front, usually with 4 or 5 guitar tracks. So that is the polar opposite of all of the albums with Fast Eddie Clarke, where Lemmy's bass is at equal volume to the guitar. And Lemmy is functioning as both rhythm guitar player and bass player at the same time. But on this album, Brian is doing his own rhythm parts, leaving no space for Lemmy. So Lemmy is way down in the mix most of the time. And that's what produces this different sound. Brian is very loud and clean. His tone is much more AC/DC than it is Black Sabbath, whereas Eddie was always very thick and saturated. And as a result of that, though, you can really hear those chimey, he does a lot of da-na-na-na-na-na-na. You wouldn't have been able to hear those type of chimey notes on Fast Eddie because the whole mix is just so washy and pushed together into the mid frequencies. So Shine, I think, was the first single. I don't know how well it did, but I absolutely love it. And it is, as Parish was saying, in the first track is there to reassure you that nothing has changed. This track is the new sound. It opens with guitar instead of bass, and Robbo maintains primacy of place throughout this track. But despite that, it's got really great up-tempo energy. And honestly, I don't think Brian Robertson ever played this well on any other album. He never played this well for Thin Lizzy. He just didn't have that much space. I mean, I honestly think Lemmy just let him loose in the studio. Lemmy complained that he would take 17 hours to record a guitar part. Well, he wasn't recording one part. He was recording 4 or 5 parts. And then I would bet he also was involved in the mix, and Lemmy wasn't, because Lemmy was notoriously lazy when working on albums. And it's a guitar player's album so much more than it is Lemmy's album. But yeah, Shine is the new sound that you're going to get with Brian Robertson. I completely love it. There's so much guitar playing on this song. It's only 3 minutes and 11 seconds long, and it probably has as many guitar parts as 4 or 5 tracks combined off of Ace of Spades.
Thank you, Reed. Parish, this album copped a bit of flack in the day, didn't it? A lot of hardcore fans didn't like it, did they?
No, they didn't. I think in latter years there's been a retrospective on it, and it's raised up a lot. And it's gone up in a lot of people's estimation. My next one, funny enough, I'm going to disagree totally with Reed about Shine. Not that I dislike it, because I do really like it, but I have to get to track 3 before I think there's a sound that sounds different to the old Motorhead. I think Shine, to me, I'm still thinking, okay, this is different, but it's not noticeably different. There's still a lot of Motorhead isms in there. Yeah, the guitar sounds a bit different, but it's got a great solo. But anyway, that's not the song I was going to talk about. The song I was going to talk about is Dancing on Your Grave, because that's the song I think actually it changes. This is the song where you suddenly realise there is a new Motorhead in town. And I just think it's brilliant. It sounds, I mean, the guitar just sounds so, I don't know. I mean, the guitar does sound quite Lizzy-esque in my view, very tuneful, very melodic. And it just drags them into, away from that kind of fast and furious heavy metal to more, I don't know, something that's almost more akin to maybe early Rainbow or Dio would be doing, or something like that. It just, I think, takes them to another place. And I just think it's a fantastic song. And the melody line in it, I think, is brilliant. I haven't got all the guitar sort of phraseology that you've got, Reed, to be able to kind of explain it, really. I just think it's got a melody and a tune in there that I think is really good. But this is the song, to me, that I think it suddenly changes. They may be kind of steering a little bit to the left with the first 2 songs, but all of a sudden they've done a very sharp turn on this one and going in a totally different direction, in my view.
Thanks, Parish. I'm going to actually talk about the same song, but I'm going to be a little bit harsher on this one. This one, to me, it's as if they got hold of a Dokken or a hair metal song, put it through the Motorhead grinder, because there are melodic angles to this song that are very un-Motorhead. So it is completely different and commercial. But Lemmy has twisted it around like plasticine to make it sound gnarly and rough. The song, and this is where, to me, this album is a little guilty, meanders a little bit. It pushes it a little bit too far, where you could have a really tight, concise 3-minute punchy song, and he lets it go to 4 minutes to 5 minutes, etc. This meanders a little bit. It could have been trimmed from 4:29. It feels a little bit too long. It's interesting, but it's not totally successful. And the reason why I'm talking about it is this, to me, is the changing sound of Motorhead on this album. So I'm a little bit harsher than you, Parish, on this one.
Yeah, fair enough.
Reed, what's your next song that you'd like to spotlight?
Well, I think what you're saying goes to just a general comment about this album. When you talk about not just the different sound of the music, but the composition of the music is so much more involved. The songs with Fast Eddie, excellent as they are quite primitive in structure. Whereas there are just all kinds of digressions and diversions and different chordal structures and, you know, oh my gosh, all of a sudden chromatic passages. Sheesh, was losing my vocabulary there, where he's going up, you know, 1 fret at a time on his guitar that you just don't get in the old Motorhead. They're so far forward. In Motorhead terms, it's a progressive album. Although I would never put Motorhead in the category of progressive rock, but this is a truly progressive album in that it is pushing forward musically. So my third track would be the title track, Another Perfect Day. And I love how, again, it opens completely differently. It opens very quietly, very mellow. It's just guitar. So a very, very different sound. And you're kind of wondering, okay, where are they going with this? And then Lemmy's voice kicks in. You know, whenever Lemmy is singing. And he comes in with that, out to lunch. And it's right back into Motorhead territory there. And he actually does these kind of non sequitur openings in songs throughout the catalog. And I always think they're excellent. There's just something about that really, it grabs your attention, even if you have no idea what he's talking about. I have no idea what he's talking about. But it's a good start. And it's like, that is when the Motorheadness of it kicks back in. And I don't know that I would say it's Lizzie-ish before that, because there's no Phil Lynott in what you're getting. It's just pure Robbo. But I do love the entry, and then I love the more mainstream Motorheadness of the song. But again, so different than you would get on any of the Fast Eddie years. But I love that. I love the complexity of it. I love all of the extra guitar parts. And I think, well, we can talk about some of the troubles they were having with the band. I think if they had survived this tour, that it would have been okay. I mean, it's not like they, hit a commercial peak after this or anything. So I'd have been all right with it anyway. So Another Perfect Day, the title track. Love that song.
Okay. Parish.
I'm going to stick with the same song. So, firstly, I'm going to say I think Motorhead has got the best run of album title track songs of any band. If you think of Overkill, through Bomber, through Ace of Spades, through Iron Fist, through Another Perfect Day, there's not many bands that have that kind of run where they've got such great open sort of title tracks, in my view, and I do think this follows in that vein. This to me is the song that sums up what I was wanting, which was that Motor Lizzie kind of hybrid. I think that's on this song. It's heavier than Lizzie, but I can hear Lizzie in there. I love the guitar on it. I love the solo in it. I think Another Perfect Day, another perfect title track, in my view.
No love for Orgasmatron?
Yeah, I think it continues through. I don't think it stops here. But yeah, I think they've got eight albums on the roll. Well, I think the title track is really good. And I don't think there's many other, if any other bands I can think of that have got that many.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you. Another one I want to focus is called One Track Mind. I was listening to this, and some of the sound, to me, the guitar work sounds like the Cult, a little bit of Zepp. I can understand how some Rusted On fans were offended because it is a different sounding Motorhead. And I like the primitive, straight to the point Motorhead. I think this song pushes the envelope a little too far, especially for me. It takes far too long to get to the point. It's 5 minutes and 55 seconds. It just meanders on. The best thing I can say about this song is Lemmy's vocals, as usual, are engaging and they keep you in. They keep you in there, but it just goes a little too long, 5 minutes 55. So One Track Mind. And that sort of highlights the problems that I have with this album. Reed, you got another one that you want to share?
Well, if I will be allowed to go to an extra track, I love their live rendition of I'm Your Hoochie Coochie Man, which is so weird for me because, as I have said many times on many shows, I'm not a blues fan. I don't ever listen to just straight blues. Blues-y can be fine, blues influenced. Sure, there's a lot of blues and a lot of rock, but I don't listen to the blues. But their live track that they added as a bonus track, I think is wonderful. And again, it just starts with this long guitar digression. And you know what? Lemmy actually does a great Muddy Waters. He can really sell that material. And I read it. I did not see this tour. I read that sometimes they would extend that jam to 15, 20 minutes because Robbo would refuse to play like Motorhead catalog songs, and he would just want to continue jamming on endlessly on the blues tunes. And again, obviously that's one reason why he was no longer in the band after this album. But it wasn't Motorhead necessarily, but I'm like, oh, that was cool. I enjoyed that. It's a one of the rare times where a bonus track, I'm like, I love that track, and I'm so glad they added it to the album.
So you think if they added it to the album, the core album, it would have fit in with the song flow?
I mean, I don't think they'd have done as good a job in a studio track. I think that the liveness adds to the grit and dirtiness that you need for that sort of song.
Yeah, fair enough. Parish.
Right, so we started the album with Lemmy reassuring us this is still Motorhead. Not a lot has changed. We've got a new guitarist, guys, but don't worry about it. And then they go all over the place. And then they finish the album by kind of reassuring us again, we haven't really changed. That was, don't be fooled by what you've just heard. And they finish the album with Die You Bastard, which to start with is a great song title. It's obviously, even by this point, Lemmy's had enough of Brian, I think. You can... I've got a feeling we know the bastard he's talking about, or maybe it was Fast Eddie. I'm not sure, but it's fast, it's furious, it's kind of early thrash, I guess, in its approach. Very typical Motorhead. Got a great solo in there, and then of course he's gone, isn't he? Brian's gone. He's out of the band on the tour, and that's the last we see of him. So they kind of start trying to reassuring us, don't worry too much. We haven't changed much. And then at the end, don't worry about what you've just heard. We're still Motorhead, really, and we're going to go back to where we were before. That's kind of how, certainly with the benefit of hindsight, that's how it feels with that track. So, yeah, my last song I'm going to pick is Die You Bastard.
Did you see this tour?
I did, yeah.
Was Brian wearing pink bicycle shorts? I heard rumours he was wearing some really...
yeah, I don't remember. Clothing. I don't remember. My recollection is he had red trousers, and it kind of matched his short orange. I mean, he just didn't look the part. I mean, the other three They used to look the same, didn't they? The long and greasy hair, leather jackets. They look like, as I said earlier, like a band of brothers. And then this guy's come in, doesn't look anything like them, isn't even trying. But I mean, the guitar playing was great. You could kind of sense there was a bit of tension in the air, but then you got that feeling with Lizzie, so there was no surprise there to some extent. I mean, I don't think I saw that. I'm pretty certain I saw him at Hammersmith Odeon, and it wasn't full. So there was, yeah. I mean, Hammersmith is about 3,500. Up until that point, whenever I'd seen them there, it was always packed.
And that's like their church. It's like their church.
And it's like their church, yeah. And I think, I mean, they normally did 3 or 4 nights there when they'd finished the tour. I've got a feeling they'd actually played 2 or 3 nights there, but certainly the night, I'm pretty certain the night I was there, my recollection, I might be wrong because it was a long time ago, but my recollection is it wasn't filled out.
So you didn't have to wait.
I think it was a decent gig though.
Yeah, you didn't have to wait too long to get a pint at the bar.
No, exactly.
I think of the psychology of this. If he's wearing like training gear or pink shorts or something like that, what's the audience's attention? Him. It's kind of like there's a little bit of psychology here, isn't it? If I want to bring my attention to me, I'll wear something completely different to the rest of the band.
I think he got away with it in a way that I mean, I'm not saying everybody was happy because he did get a bit of flack, I think, from memory. But he generally got away with it because he was from Lizzie and people loved him in Lizzie. He was no name, and therefore it kind of felt like he was a hired hand gun into the band. I don't think anybody expected him to be there forever because he wasn't in Lizzie and he wasn't in Wild Horses, etc., etc. So I think he got some. People gave him, as I say, a bit of leeway because of that. If he'd been a newer guitarist and he wasn't so well known, then I think he would have got a huge amount of flack for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the track I'm going to spotlight is I Got Mine. To me, this is the most Lizzie-sounding song on the album. If you replace Lemmy's vocals and put Phil on it, to me it sounds like a late 70s Lizzie track. It's got a simple guitar riff. Bass is very low in the mix, which refers to what Reed was saying earlier. The drumming behind the beat, it has a lot of energy, swagger in the chorus when Lemmy says right now. So, yeah, I like this song. It's got a lot of groove. Also, a quick shout out to Die You Bastard. I think that is a brutal, uncompromising finish to the album. It leaves the listener with a bang. So, a very unusual album, I think. Why don't I go to you, Reed, and you provide your final thoughts. Then we'll go to the Parish. Then I'll wrap it up with me.
Sure. So I know this is going to piss off all of the classic Motorhead fans, but look, I like the trio of Mickey D, Phil Campbell, and Lemmy best, and kind of working back in order from there. So I do not think Ace of Spades is by any stretch of the imagination Motorhead's best album. I think it has some cracking songs on it. I think it has some filler songs. Their filler songs are good, but they have a lot better material. I find Another Perfect Day consistently more interesting. The song structures are more interesting. Like I said, whether it was Lemmy's intention or not is impossible to know, especially once the album started getting bad press. Lemmy started bad-mouthing it, and I thought that was a bad look. I think if Lemmy had just said, shut up, it's Motorhead, and we're gonna come back and beat your brains out with the next album, everything would have been just fine. But the fact is, like I said, Robertson is so all over this album. It is a guitar player's album, solo after solo after fill after fill. He's not a particularly accomplished riffer. He does fairly primitive riffing, just like Fast Eddie did. And now Fast Eddie said that was because Lemmy is taking up so much space as the bassist. So that's why in Fastway he does a little bit more riffing, because he had a proper bass player who left him some space to play. But yeah, I prefer Another Perfect Day to Ace of Spades. I said I find it consistently more interesting. There's more structure to the songs, and sometimes I prefer that over the simpler Motorhead, although I do love the Fast Eddie years as well.
Thank you, Reed. Parish, your final thoughts in this album battle?
I'll come to my favourite in a minute. I think looking back 45 years, whatever it is later, Another Perfect Day isn't as different as it felt at the time. It doesn't, maybe because they changed it. I mean, they never really evolved to the same extent some bands do, but they did change over a period of time. And this doesn't sound such a big leap from the albums that went before as it felt at the time. And I think it fits in there quite nicely now. And I have to say that neither are my favourite Motorhead albums. Maybe surprising for some people, but that's actually my favourite Motorhead album, Bomber. Now, that might be... I mean, it wasn't the album I came in on. I came in on Overkill, but it was the first time I saw them live. And as you can see on No Sleep to Hammersmith, they've got the Bomber airplane above them on the stage set, which was just awesome to see live. And maybe that all helps for me to elevate that album to be my favourite. But of the two, I am going to give it to Ace of Spades. It just had such an important part of my life at the time. The fact it was recorded just up the road from where I went to school probably had something to do with it as well. But I do like Another Perfect Day, and I was just looking at what I printed off from Wikipedia, which kind of quoted some of the things you said earlier, Reed, about, it says, this is Lemmy, recording Another Perfect Day was fucking torture. Brian had taken 17 hours doing a guitar track, fucking took so long compared with the other albums, and then when it was released, everybody fucking hated it. Well, I didn't, and my mates didn't hate it. We quite liked it, but it didn't quite, in our minds, it didn't quite live up to what we thought. We thought that here's two, the best of two, or two of the best bands ever in Motorhead and Lizzie coming together, and yeah, it didn't quite meet that level, I don't think, of what we expected. But I certainly liked it then, and I think, as I say, with hindsight, it's not as such a step change as it felt at the time. But I am going to give it to Ace of Spades. It's just such a classic album. The imagery, the songs, and even if it's just for Ace of Spades and We Are the Road Crew, I think it's got to come out on top, if only for those two songs.
Well said, Parish. Well said. So about Another Perfect Day, I like it, but I think pound for pound, I do prefer Ace of Spades. I'd like the more primitive, straight to the point, direct type songs. And I think if you weigh up the songs on Ace of Spades against Another Perfect Day, that's my preference. Another Perfect Day, I like the added textures of Brian. It's a different type of Motorhead, but there are too many songs that sort of outstay their welcome and meander a little bit unfocused, a little bit flabby. 44 minutes for a Motorhead album, I think it's getting a little bit long in the tooth. For the record, I think Motorhead's best album is Overkill. That's my favorite. And if I was looking at anything they've put out, I love their live album. I think it's just thumbs up.
Number one in the UK.
It was.
It was their number one album. Yeah.
And still not enough to take bronze records out of liquidation.
No, it didn't stop, unfortunately. And yeah. In fact, I was at Hammersmith Odeon earlier in the week, or standing outside it anyway, having a look at. I went for work. I was working just around the corner, so when
Memories.
Nathan had a look at. Yeah, it's not called Hammersmith Odeon anymore. It's the Apollo. But,
The Apollo.
anyway.
Yeah, fantastic. Great having you guys on the show. Read a little from the Contrarians. Please check out the Contrarians, lots of shows. And Parish, you'll see him on the Contrarians as well. And these folks are part of the Rock Daydream Nation family. We will do another show very, very soon over the course of 2025. So tell us what your favorite Motorhead albums are. Who do you think wins this album battle? Is it Ace of Spades or is it Another Perfect Day? Favorite songs? We love reading your comments. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. But one thing's for sure, you'll see these fine gentlemen on Rock Daydream Nation very soon. All the best and cheers.
Cheers.
See you
Thanks.
later.